Right, looks like we're live. I've got Stan. I'm just going to bring Stan in. Stan in now. Let me just bring Stan in. Invite as co-host. Right, good evening, guys. Welcome to Behind Closed Doors. I'm just going to invite my co-host in, Stan, who's my guest tonight. I'm going to have a chat with Stan. And tell him a little bit about the format, about what you do. Underneath, I don't know if you can hear me, Stan, but underneath your screen, you'll see a microphone, a camera, in stream. You might not have in stream. That might be just my end. And then I'll just explain a little bit to you. On the right-hand side, you'll see there's 4 people that are participants that are watching it. Are in the right-hand side of the screen, which you should chat. So you've got a little bubble next to the 4 people or the 2 people where it says 4. That's your comments that are going to come in. And people are going to be asking questions.
Let me just. Can you hear me, Alan?
Perfect. Absolutely
okay,
perfect.
Let me just get some more lighting. I look like I've been on holiday.
No worries at all. No worries at all. So good evening to everybody. Roy in the chat. Charles Zerner Spencer's in the chat. We've got Stan who's come on and joined us, and going to tell you all about Stan and let Stan introduce himself and tell you about what he hopes to change in the political field that we've got out there, or the political circus we've got out there, or it's become a political circus out there, and it's just unbelievable what's happening in politics today. It's almost like demonic. It's not democracy as such. It's kind of like, I love to put another word to democracy. Anything that it isn't in a democracy. So, good evening, Stan. Thank you for coming on to the show tonight.
Thank you for having me, Alan.
No problem at all. And we've done a few bits and pieces together over the years. We've been on campaigns and protests all around the country. As you can see behind me, my backdrop is some fella walking around the streets with a camera in his hand. Some guys approaching him in the street, and another guy's taking photographs of my T-shirt on the back. And that's what we do. We walk around the streets parading. And doing what we do. We like filming, we like engaging and chatting. Now, you've been involved not only as you've done quite a lot. I mean, Christ, your experiences is beyond belief. And you've got a military background, because I remember seeing you in your all dressed up on Remembrance Day and at the send-off with your rosette, your poppy on, and so on, and showing your respect to your fallen colleagues.
Yeah.
And that was very, very honourable. And you do that because I think you went to something. I saw you. I think you went to somewhere in Wales. You went to a cinema or somewhere like that in Wales. You went to somewhere in Wales to do exactly the same. So you went to your own hometown or own area. So yeah, I just want to say, if everybody's in the chat, Sophie, Sonia, God, does she get me confused? Webby's in there as well.
Yeah.
So,
good evening, Roy. Good evening,
you, Stan. Let's just now. You see the political mess, and you do your own show on Voice of Wales. You're a great advocate for everything you do. I've sat and watched you and listened to you and done lots of stuff with you, and you're actually quite a good man with the knowledge that you've got. It's quite phenomenal. Just tell people what you're about, what you think is wrong, what you think is right. I mean, we've only got an hour, so cram whatever you can into that period of time. Over to you, Stan.
Okay, so you're quite correct. I've sort of got a schizophrenic background with the military. I've both served, and then I went into the Ministry of Defence. I've served at SHAPE headquarters and NATO.
Yep.
Which then in as a civilian role, I was at the Defence Geographic Centre, which sounds nothing, but actually it's the mapping, it's the intelligence, and it's the the gathering of information so that could then go onto live operations, like in Afghanistan, for example, and also Op Olympics, which was a big one for us in the UK, because of course we've got our own grown domestic terrorists here.
Yeah.
I've not stood for a while, and I've decided now that to bring you all up to speed, I'm going to be standing for the UK Independence Party in Llanelli, and standing against Nia Griffiths, MP. The reasons for that are manifold. One is that when the Stradey Park Hotel was going to be occupied by 300 male fighting age illegal immigrants, nowhere near Griffiths was nowhere to be seen. In fact, the only photograph we had of her really was holding a tea tray saying, "More please, more refugees please," because that's what the left do. Everybody to them, and of course the church, is a refugee. They're not fake UGs. They're not illegal aliens. They are refugees. Now, my definition of a refugee, Alan, are the white farmers in South Africa that are being butchered and murdered every day. My definition of a refugee are the Hong Kongers who were as free as you and I, and now it's the most heavily surveilled place in the world. And if they think you were involved in the yellow umbrellas, remember that?
Yeah,
protest, the peace protest, then you're lifted and you're taken off to a camp. And of course, communist China. So we do have genuine refugees, and they're not all, you know, the left always say, "Oh, you're a fascist, you're this, that, and the other." Of course, the Hong Kongers are not my colour skin, and so they can't throw that at us. Is that feedback?
No. It's my clock that's ticking. Charles is a military man. He's actually in the chat. So if you see that little bubble, you can see what people are putting up as well. And Charles is next Navy man and served on the frigates and in the Royal Navy. And that I think he's more radars and quite he's quite. He talks a lot about the military.
Yeah, well, I mean, of course, you know that could lead on, couldn't it? Because, of course, the Royal Navy has just got the D-class destroyers, and they are having problems with the Rolls-Royce engines that they have. Grant Chaps has decided that it's global boiling that's done that, but in fact, it most certainly isn't, because if you think about yesteryear, you had destroyers going down to the Falklands, and also in patrol in the Mediterranean, going through to the Red Sea, and the Straits of Hormuz, on all sorts, off Aden, and so, you know, the Royal Navy is in a sad state. And we need to up our defence, but we also need radical change in procurement, because you know the Royal Navy, before they were handed over those ships, they were 2 years in trials. So why didn't those mistakes come out then? You know, why didn't they sail them up to Iceland or down to the Falklands or over to Aden? You know, why didn't they do that? And now, of course, we've got the fiasco with His Majesty's ship, Queen Elizabeth, and the Prince of Wales.
Problems there. One time we had Ascension Island, and we used to. I'm not too sure if the ships would stop off Ascension Island on the way to the Falklands or whatever the case might be. But we used to have Ascension Island, and it's strange how you do this all the time to me. You talk about a subject, and it's kin to me in some respects that I know people that have either gone to former Rhodesia, Zimbabwe. And when we talk about stuff that you talk about, I'm interested in the NATO side of it, because NATO isn't the thing that we thought it was, is it? And NATO now is almost like in collusion with, well, it is government, but I mean, in collusion to everything that's going on around the world.
It most certainly is. I don't know when Charles served, but when I was in, there were 16 countries called NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, and there was the Warsaw Pact countries. In 1989, Warsaw Pact, or the Soviet Union, collapsed, and the buffer zone. It was supposed that those countries of the Warsaw Pact would remain neutral. They would not house troops on there, and they would most certainly not house nuclear weapons. NATO has reneged on that. The other stance of it was, I think, from memory, Article 6 of the Atlantic Treaty, an attack on one is an attack on all, and it was a purely defensive alliance.
I think I've heard Charles use that term before, and there's a lot of things that you've said, North Atlantic Treaty, the Warsaw Pact, all them stuff. You know, they do, to me, they don't mean a lot, but no. I've heard them, if that makes me, because not being a military man or coming from a military background or whatever the case might be, or the services industry, at the end of the day, I still know and heard of all of these, you know, all these things that you're talking about. So I'm akin to what you're talking about.
Yeah. So you imagine you've got 16 countries in 1989. NATO is a purely defensive alliance, and it's subsumed all of the Warsaw Pact countries. We're now totaling, I think, 30 countries in NATO, and we've expanded our remit into the Middle East.
Yeah.
You tell me if that is not an aggressive alliance, or at least it's gone from being an attack on one and it's an attack on all, and purely defensive, to a stance that the Russians have said, well, no, this wasn't the deal. You've reneged on the deal. And indeed, you've now got in Germany, you've now got nuclear weapons right on our doorstep. You know, so that's one section of it. Then, of course, with the World Economic Forum and Ukraine and the Azov Battalion, who are Nazis, you then have in 2003. Forgive me if I get these dates slightly muddled, slightly wrong.
Yeah.
But you then get the killing and the onslaught of ethnic Russians in Ukraine. Well, just north of Ukraine, actually. But certainly in Ukraine. Sorry, just north of Crimea, but certainly in Ukraine. Yeah. And the Ukrainians did not do anything. And then in 2014, they held an election and they voted for a president that was pro-Warsaw Pact. And so that went against the CIA, and there was a coup d'etat. And you've now got a cocaine-snorting, Nazi-hugging president who is called Zelensky in there, who's a bit like our government now. He's the head, but he's not in charge. And that's where we go then to the World Economic Forum, who are in charge.
And talking with Charles has put in there, it's Article 5 of the NATO countries to go to each other's aid. And Charles, funny enough, he's actually living in Ukraine. He married a Ukrainian woman, and he's been trying, you know, how the visa, how strict the visa is in this country or other countries. It was quite strict. He had to do so many months or 6 months, and then it was a year or whatever the case before it was finalised. And he's got his embossed documents now, or I forget what he actually calls them, but he's got his paperwork now. And Charles is a very, very good common law man. He's very good with his common law and constitutional law, so on and so forth. He does a show on a Tuesday night and Wake Up, funny enough. But Neil Griffiths, now we done some filming out there, didn't we? When I was in Wales and I was down there with you, I came down with you guys, you and Dan, and we actually filmed outside his office, didn't we?
Yeah, Neil Griffiths and also Lee Waters.
Lee Waters,
yeah. We did. And of course, he also has been absent without leave. He first of all berated people like you and I, called us all the names under the sun. Then he then went on sick leave because people were defending us. Then he then decided to block people. And then today he's been up to Stradey Park. That's the first time he's been.
Yeah, I see that.
But the TV crews were there.
Strange, isn't it?
It's you know, it's a miraculous thing, isn't it? That
isn't it strange how you have these photo shoots? There's especially weird you should say that, because I've been to Scampton today just to see what's happening, to see what was any outcome from it, and who should be there but a camera crew, a news crew, Channel 4 News, and they asked me to do an interview. And I keep banging the drum about extremists. And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about, extremists? I don't know what you're talking about. You keep asking the question. You're not interested in actually what's actually going on behind that fence and what's going on in that actual airbase and what's going to happen in that airbase and what's going to happen to the surrounding area and how it's going to affect every single person in this area when there's potentially a £300 million investment that's going to go into that former RAF base. But all you're more interested in is what happened on Saturday night or something when some people attacked the protesters out, and they do it in a way that they try to draw you in. And I said, look, you could film for so many hours, and out of them so many hours, you'll probably show about 2 minutes of it.
If
I said, it's strange how you record all of it and don't go live with it, and then people can actually see what you actually they say is coming out straight away, but you've got to record it so you can edit it, but edit it your way.
Yes. Yeah, no, it is right that, Alan. I'll tell you what I regard as extremist. When Reform UK have Simon Danjak, the former Labour MP that was kicked out of the Labour Party for sexting a 17-year-old girl about spanking, he then raises the Pakistani flag on Pakistani Independence Day at Rochdale and announces that he's going to stand. That's extreme. George Galloway is going to stand in Rochdale. That's extreme, because they are now trying to chase the very people that are the extremists in this country, the Islam and the jihadis.
Yep.
The grooming gangs in Rochdale. You know, it's still there. They are still there.
You know what? I've got a funny answer because Billy Howard is standing for Rochdale, and he's already. When you're talking about George Galloway, they've been on the attack with Billy already, trying to stir the trouble up and trying to wind him up and all that. He's trying to put somebody else off, but he said, "I'm not going anywhere. They can say what they like and they can do what they like." While you're talking, I might actually try and find the message they actually send me. And I looked at it and I thought, wow.
Gaza Galloway, because that's what we'll call him, he supports Hamas.
Yeah.
He supports the Palestine Liberation Organization. He supports the fact that they went into an unprovoked country on the 7th of October. They murdered unborn babies that were swaddling, and children and women, girls and young women. They raped them, they beheaded them. Where's the apology from the Muslim Council of Great Britain?
Yeah.
These are the extremists, Alan, you know, and we're riddled with them.
Yeah.
And so these people will go back to Nia Griffiths. These people that when you ask a simple question, how many is too many, Nia?
Yeah.
They won't answer. They won't answer.
No, we've seen it.
You know, you've got this nonsense, which hopefully you'll come on to, about farming in the United Kingdom and Welsh farming in particular. You've got the Spanish, they're putting bales down. You've got the French, they're spreading manure. You've got the Italians, they're burning tires. You've got the Germans, they're blocking up Berlin. What are the Welsh going to do?
Yeah.
They're going to get on buses and put Wellington boots outside the Senedd.
Yeah.
Well, they might as well stay at home, because that kind of lily-livered activity, and they're already being called racist now. They're already being called fascist by the left and Plaid Cymru and Labour. They're already being called it now.
Yeah.
So
there is a meeting tomorrow night in I think it's 7:30 in Carmarthenshire Cattle Market with the farmers, but the likes of you or I or Phil Watkinson or whatever the case might be won't be allowed in there, or mainstream media, because we already know what they're going to do. Virtually nothing. They're not going to be in a league as some of the French, the Germans, the Spanish, and the Irish.
Yeah, again, yes, the Irish have come out. So I didn't mention those. So you've got the whole of Europe that are saying no, and they're going to get £400 billion, right? That's across Europe. That's what they're going to get. to settle the disputes. It's taken them 2 weeks. It took Stradey Park protesters 100 days of 24 hours a day being there.
Yeah.
It will take considerably less if the farmers decided in the middle of the night to put hay bales on roads, or to block the Senedd up, or to just drive down to the Senedd and snarl up the whole of Cardiff.
If they messed it with tractors and completely surrounded it. Do you know, I've been doing stuff outside Parliament, and the taxi drivers in London have suddenly turned around and stopped in the middle of the road. All the taxis have converged onto Parliament Square and just blocked off all of the of Westminster and completely snarled it. Just said, that's it, we're not going anywhere, blah, blah, blah. And they've also, there's so many of them, like we've seen in some of the footage that's come out of these farmers in more so Europe, masses of them, and millions of them with the orange lights going. It was orange lights as far as you could see, as far as the beacon you could see. But to stick, I mean, honestly, if that's true, that they're going to go to the Senate and stick Wellington boots.
They're not even going to fill them with manure or put super glue on the heels and put them down so that there's a lasting memory there. They're just going to go on a bus, put the wellies down, have a couple of speeches. They might, if they're lucky, pull an AM, but I doubt it. And then, they go back. The issue is this, that there is no such thing as global warming. It's called climate change, and we're in a cyclical 96-year period, and we're about to go cooler. That's it. The fact that they're talking about methane, the cows are farting too many times, and in Ireland the cows are farting too many times. Methane lasts for about 12 years, 10 years to 12 years, and then it breaks up. And so, are they suggesting, which is what they are, that the methane is climbing, which is the graph that they've shown the farmers, and it's climbing and climbing because it's indestructible methane? That's what they're pushing. That's the line that they're pushing. In fact, we've probably got less cattle now than we did have. And so therefore the methane globally will start to shrink. And as long as we keep the cows to this is if you go along with their crackpot ideas. If you keep the cattle to the approximate numbers now, that's it. But what happens when a volcano goes off? What happens if Iceland goes off and Etna goes off at the same time? Are these people stupid? Why has Barack Obama and what's that other idiot, Al Gore? Why have they got beachside apartments when in fact they're saying that the sea temperatures are rising? It makes no sense unless you're gullible enough to take it in. And Davos, why don't they all do it on Zoom? If they're all frightened about the environment, why don't they all do it on a Zoom call?
Some really, really good points there raised in what you're actually saying, and such true and such a different perspective put on it as well. And I thought actually, I think one of the biggest expenditures last year, and it's run by Labour, by the way, not Tories, but it's run by Labour, who have completely, and excuse my French, but completely fucked it up. But I think they spent, am I correct in saying it was absolutely, it's not 54, or there's a percentage, it's the highest percentage of what the expenditure was, and they claim on climate change last year. Am I correct in that?
What was that? Sorry, for the Senedd, you mean?
What they've actually spent on even the Carmarthenshire area. Climate change is at the top of the chain of what they actually spent millions of pounds on. And then down at the bottom are your NHS, your schools, and everything else. Climate change seems to be the top of the ladder. What they're trying to... Go on.
Believe it or not, when we exposed that, they took the graph down from Senedd papers and they remodeled it. But so then Waters came online and started saying, oh, well, the climate change encompasses more than just climate change, to which we just guffawed. Either they're saying that they're lying about the charts, or the charts are right.
Yeah.
There's no, you know, either you're trying to mislead people by having the wrong chart there, or you're lying to us. Whichever way, they're you know, they're crazy. It's a crazy disconnect.
But they lie anyway. I mean, how do you know a politician's? What's the word they say? That how do you know a politician's lying? His mouth or his lips are moving.
His lips are moving. Yeah,
It's exactly the scenario, and it's been so bad down in Wales, and I feel sorry for the people of Wales. How it's got to the stage it's got to, and you think to yourself, you know, these people really need to even wake up and do something about it before it's actually too late. Because I actually think that we're on the verge, really on the verge now. I reckon, this is my opinion, and I'm a nobody really, but I think we've got less than 10 years in this country before this country is changed unreversibly.
Well, the figures back that up. You know, we thought it was going to be 2050 when Caucasian people were going to be in the minority, and it's now going to be 2035.
Yeah.
You know, but there's an easy solution to that. If you want, first of all, you get out of the European Court of Human Rights.
Yeah.
You get out of the migration compact that idiot May got Boris Johnson to sign as Foreign Secretary. You withdraw from the European Convention or Refugee Convention on the parts about the definition of a refugee, because now there seems to be some play words on it. You don't allow anybody to claim legal aid if they can get from one end of the world to here, and they're saying that they've got no money. Well, I'm sorry, no, that's not going to wash. Go and borrow some money off the people that you trafficked, or they.
It actually pisses me off that these people, right, have been in this country. Some of these people have been in this country, right, and some of these people have been in this country a long time.
Yeah,
more than probably 10 years. Let's do the scenario. I'll say around about 10 years, 12 years, whatever the case be. In that period of time, right, they have been paid Social Security, and they don't intend to speak any English at all. Their language is their native language of their country. They speak that and that only, and they are quick to take the money that's given to them from social services, and they don't want to adapt. They don't want to, and the culture, right, of this country is literally eroding before us. You know,
it is, and these are these gammon-faced liberals that have done all this, because, of course, I think it is. Hungary, I believe it's Hungary, that are about to outlaw Sharia law.
Yeah,
there's one set of
doing it. Yeah, I remember that. I've seen that.
There's one set of rules, and that's it. So we go down that road. You know, if people want to be reunited with their families, fine, we'll fly them over there. But we've got to, you know, we know that multiculturalism has failed. It's been a failure.
Yeah.
And so they changed the word to diversity.
Yeah.
That's failed as well. So you've got probably another word that's probably going to come up. But no, we've got our own culture and we've got our own ways, and they need protecting. Excuse me. We've got some of us. I can trace my roots back to the Vikings and also the ancient Britons in Wales.
Yeah.
So my lineage is secure, and I want that protecting, because I am now what's called an endangered person. We all are in this country.
Yeah.
So we need to have Aboriginal status, or we need to have or North American status.
And look what they've done to them. Natives of a lot of countries, and Anglo natives that have been in the countries since day dot, before it got overpopulated by everybody else but themselves. And we seem to get it's the same in Australia with the Aborigines and so on and so forth. And you could talk about this as a different subject. But what I want to come to is so you saw enough of what was going on within your own country, and it's been going on for quite some time. I mean, Labour's run Wales for some time, haven't they?
25 years.
Yeah, that's a long time to fuck it up.
That's 25 years in the Senedd, and it's about 100 years when they were part of the United Kingdom, so to speak, and they were counties. They've always controlled here,
Yeah.
and in that time, so now you've had 25 years of the Senedd. In the last 10 years, it became popular, or yeah, about 10 years, it became popular to start talking about de-skilling our nation and de-industrializing our nation. And you've got Miles, you've got Gethin, you've got Waters, you've got Griffiths, actually, you've got Drakeford, and they're all saying the same thing: net zero, carbon zero, all this. And of course, what happens? The Indians who own Tata Steel have said, right, well, we're sick of bailing you out. We're going to walk. And the reason for that is because Ed Miliband, when he was in 2003, possibly, he brought in an energy tariff. And of course, the more you pay, the more you polluted, the more you paid. Who got it in the neck? British Steel. And so if you imagine you being the owner of Tata Steel, and you've got a board of directors, Alan, and you can pay a steel man in India £200 a month, or £3,000 or £4,000 a month in England, or Wales, and also you've got state industry gas and electricity and coal. So it costs nothing to burn.
Yeah,
you've got no competition, and what they're doing now is they're saying, "Oh, we're going to put electric furnaces in." That means that the Royal Navy is going to have to import steel if they're going to ever build ships here in the United Kingdom.
Yeah,
it means that we're going to have to import steel if we have to build tanks. At the moment, we're buying them from Spain and anywhere else, but we're going to be the only country, the G20 country in the world, that doesn't manufacture its own virgin steel, and that is appalling. Yeah. And what does the Senedd do? What does Mr. Drakeford do? He points to Westminster. No, Mr. Drakeford, you're in charge of the economy. The buck stops with you, or it should do, but it never does. It never does on health. It never does on education. It never does on the economy, and it never does on housing. And you've got the portfolio for all of those.
And that guy's still making decisions in the Senate, Drakeford, until I think he's resigning, or he's standing down come the next election.
He's standing down, Alan, because 2 days before he stood down, 2 days after he stood down, the 20-mile-an-hour enforcement came in. And I think 4 days before he stood down, he was due, I understand, to go to the COVID inquiry.
Yeah.
So the man is an entire fraud. He's a chicken. He's a coward. He's whatever name you want to throw at him. The man couldn't make a decision if it came to putting on the same colour shirt.
Yeah, he bought
You must dress him in the morning. And the other question is, his net worth is £6 million.
Yeah. A lot of them
where has he got that, being a civil servant?
It's funny you should say that. I was looking at the politicians the other day, and I was just doing a kind of like a net worth for some of these politicians. The majority of the politicians that represent the common people are multimillionaires.
Yeah, yeah.
How does that work? How can you represent? Now, when we talk about extremists, I think, myself personally speaking, the biggest extremists are in Westminster, and the paedophile palace. I think the politicians are the worst extremists going for what they've done to the people of this country.
Yeah, yeah, I agree, Alan. We are now not masters of our own destiny, because whatever we say, they say, "Oh, that's a treaty. We can't break that treaty. Oh, that's a compact. We can't treat." Yes, we can. We're a sovereign nation and a sovereign parliament, and we can do what the bloody hell we want. And it will take people like Anne-Marie Waters and myself and another 500 people who are of like-minded and strong-willed to turn that round.
Yeah, It's not, James just put an interesting remark in it. If they're not millionaires by the time they leave government, they are. But at the end of the day, majority of them are going to public school. We've had 25 prime ministers that have come into be running this country, and they've all come from Eton. So it actually says a lot for working class people or common people if 25 of our own prime ministers have come actually out of Eton. You know, Tom Brown school days, whatever the case might be.
Well, it's even worse actually in Wales, because if I'll give you an example, Lee Waters, ex BBC journalist, then he rode a bicycle around for the Green, you know, for some green lobby charity, and then he worked for. Let me get it right. The Institute of Welsh Affairs, which we've done battles with. So every single job that he's done has been Labour government sponsored in Wales, and so they've picked him. But if you look at all the others, they've either been to Aberystwyth University, or Swansea is a favourite one, or Cardiff, and not one of the ministers at all could actually are competent. They're not competent. They're not capable, and they don't hold meetings. They don't hold public meetings. They don't hold, you know, proper debating forums where you can iron out any problems before it becomes law. If they'd have done that with the 20 mile per hour thing, Alan, they wouldn't have passed it. Yeah. But instead, you know, it's this People's Socialist Republic. They will be re-educated.
I turned around and said that in a conversation with somebody the other day. I said, well, what are we paying road tax for if we're going to be charged for using the roads in this stealth tax of these cameras? And at the end of the day, why don't they just toll the roads so we pay something like 20 quid every time we go to use the roads instead of having to pay road tax and all these draconian measures they put in? And they try to say it's about safety this and safety that. There's nothing proven fact. There's no proven facts here at all. In actual fact, they're turning around and saying now it's probably causing more damage that vehicles, diesel vehicles or buses or whatever the case might be, some of them can't even work at a low speed.
Well, we've actually we've had two guests on our program, Lembit Opit, who speaks for the Motorcycle Action Group, and he's an expert on his you know, in that. And we've also had Godfrey Bloom, who's an Institute of Advanced Motorist speaker as well. Both of those people have said that at 30 miles an hour, pedestrians will look at something coming towards them and wait. At 20 miles an hour, they will try and go forward, and it could actually end up having more accidents than less. But time will tell. In September, we'll have had a year. In the meantime, you do a lot of travelling. I think Wales has to be the worst riddled with potholes roads in the country, in the United Kingdom. The surfaces are dangerous. They are, if they're not flooded, they've got potholes in, which when it rains, you can't see those potholes. And if you're on a motorbike, you hit them, you're dead. You know. And this is the kind of idiocy that we've got running the Senate. And now, rather than apologise and say we've got it wrong, you've got Woolly Waters now who's saying, oh, each individual authority can relook at things and it's up to them to take them down. The authorities have no money. This was extra money. Well, it wasn't extra money. It was our money that they gave the authorities to do it in the first place.
And you talk about the two guests that you've had on your show just recently. I was watching Anne-Marie Waters last night, funny enough, and Anne-Marie is very, very passionate. I actually interviewed her at Scampton only a couple of weeks ago. I like the woman. I've always had a liking for her. Listen, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea. You're not going to please everybody all the time. You're going to read some of the people some of the time. The guest that you were talking about, one of them was a bit cheeky with the girls, wasn't he?
It comes up every time that in fact when he does he has that as a slide.
so what you got now? Okay, so it's going to be difficult for you now going out on the streets because what people are seeing and what people have seen and what's happening in this country and Wales or part of the British Isles, what's happened, right, to the state of our country. And I actually believe there is something going to happen this year that is quite a huge thing. And I think the reason why the election has been pushed back by 6 months, basically, is because there is more planned, more draconianism, more damage planned by one of something that we've already mentioned already on the show. So how do you go out on the street and say, well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that? It's a hard question probably for you to answer, but you've seen so much crap that's happened in your own country. What do you say to people and what would you like to see change? And how do you actually change it? How do we change this?
We've got to have so the UKIP, United Kingdom Independence Party slogan is actually people, not politics, and it's a good message because I've never been a councillor, I've never been an MP. In fact, I wouldn't want to be one. But there comes a point in life where you've got to put your money where your mouth is. And so I've decided to stand. Now, you ask me what I can do. I can do what I did up at Stradey Park, and that's tell the truth and repeatedly tell the truth and point things out. So the one thing that I've seen today, we've got something like about in Carmarthenshire, well, it probably mirrors Wales actually, 0.1 Jewish population.
Yeah.
We've got 0.2 Sikh population.
Yeah.
We've got 2.2 Muslim population. And the rest are all small. And yet today, or I think it was yesterday, you've got the Police and Crime Commissioner, Plaid Cymru, of Carmarthenshire, giving away money to open a youth club up for ethnic youth at a time when the youth services in Carmarthenshire have been cut to the bone and rely heavily on volunteers. I did, it was 10 years as a civilian instructor with the Air Cadets, and I didn't get a penny for it. And then I did another about 8 years as a chairman of a squadron, and it took a lot of hours. I got paid nothing. I didn't want to get paid anything. But you see the inadequacy, you see the unequalness of all this.
Yeah.
They're building things before there's a need for one group of people, and yet for the people that are, and why would you want to actually split the community? A game of football, you don't say, oh, I'll have 6 Pakistanis and 2 Sikhs, please. You actually have a team, don't you? And it could be of anybody. And that's how you build community relations. You don't segregate them and have women-only swimming lessons, or the pool on a Thursday for ethnic minorities, which is currently what they're doing. I understand that there's some private pitches that are rented by the council for people for ethnics in Llanelli. Why are they doing that? Why aren't they part of the general community?
I actually like that metaphor that you used in actual fact, because at the end of the day, believe it or not, it's something we actually used to do. We used to say, oh, I'll have him and you have him or whatever, and he would pick one off of that side and he would pick one off that side, and in the end you was left for what was ever left. Do you get what
and for football it was always me that was last. For rugby, however, I was number about 3 or 4, so it just depended on what you did.
For what I've seen in Wales when I've been down here, for the passion the Welsh have got about rugby, you should be one of the best teams in the world, if not World Cup winners multiple times, because the rugby is more of the game for the Welsh than football. And the Welsh are so passionate about their rugby. And some of the guys that I've seen,
you're absolutely right, Alan. It's marvellous, and even if you, like, I was in a pub on Friday and I watched the Irish-French match.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of guys in the pub and they had Lacoque on there, you know, the French. Yeah. And there was some Irish guys in there. And the atmosphere's superb. It's brilliant. And
I've noticed that in the Stradey Park Arms when there's been a Welsh game on, and the people are all round the television, and it's something that I haven't seen so much in England as passionately as Welsh are for their. Is it the national game in rugby for the Welsh?
Yes.
Yeah, so that speaks for itself, doesn't it? It says so. We've got probably about 15 minutes left to wind up the show. So you've seen so many things, and you've got some really, really good things that you've talked about. I've seen some brilliant guests. You've had some brilliant guests on Voice of Wales in your shows, and you was at Telford with me last week. Yeah. I thought that was a really good turnout. I thought Tommy actually spoke very, very well. When he stood down on the mic, he does pick up the microphone and he does kind of like know how to play to an audience. He's very, very good with people. And the Welsh girls that met him afterwards in, I believe it was Burger King, just by pure accident, they thought, oh, we was going to go to the Beefeater. It was swarming. You couldn't get a meal or anything. So they said, sorry, we'll make our way back. Stopped at Burger King. Who pulled up next to them? Tommy Robinson. And they walked into there and Tommy Robinson said, right, you know, I buy the meals, blah, blah, blah. And he was so good with the girls. And the girls were actually turning around and saying, how can anybody ever call him like they are doing? And it's like when I was doing this Channel 4 thing tonight, they were trying to pump you to get you to say something that you shouldn't say.
Yeah. It's because people are, you know, they are 2 minutes on the phone and it's click, 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 click. And if it says on there, Tommy Robinson's a fraudster. Oh, he's a fraudster. Yeah. But they don't understand that it was to me, it was a technicality. It was a mortgage fraud, and it was somebody had overvalued the property. When I was knocking about 10, 15 years ago, that was the norm. That people would undervalue a property for you to buy, and over inflate your wages. You know, that's what they did, and of course there was the scam in America. I think that all stopped it, but that's how widespread it was. You know,
it sounds like WeBuyAnyHome.com.
Yeah, and of course Paul Goulding. Oh, he's been arrested for terrorism. No, he refused to let the code on his phone be hacked by the police. And why would you?
Crazy.
You know, but people pick these up and that's it. You're a bad un for life.
I'll come to you in a minute, James. I'll see you put a question. I'll come to you in a minute, James. Go on.
But I'm glad people have seen. I mean, I was resistant to Tommy. Dan has been a lifelong fan.
I know.
And I wasn't. And I saw him in a Greek restaurant. And as he walked in, the owner came out, hugged him. His family came out and hugged him. There was a couple of Pakistani chaps at the table. They got up and shook his hand. And then he came back into the back area where they were meeting to go into Westminster Court. And he had a meal. And whilst he was there, people were coming up to him, signing things. And he was being interrupted constantly. But he is a people person.
If Tommy was looking for a way to pay his legal fees, if he posed and said, right, okay, yeah, I'll give me £1 for every photograph I stand with a person with, I think he'd be able to pay his legal fees. Because when we were at court the other week in London and he was standing in court, the amount of people and the lot of ethnic minority of people that were surrounding him, what, and he was talking to them as if he was like one-to-one, and if they were just any ordinary person just like himself. Yeah. James turned around and asked a question now. I'll come back to this. And said, where is Stan standing and is he up for MP? That's what he's to put in there. And then he said, I might as well talk to the trees. So instead of him talking to the trees, Stan, just tell him what you...
Yeah, I'm standing in the parliamentary constituency of Llanelli against Neil Griffiths MP. I'm the prospective parliamentary candidate. I have to put that in. And what was the other question? Sorry.
It's not, well, no, he was just saying that he wanted to know, are you going to stand for MP or
Yes.
where he standing for, and is it MP he's standing for?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and would you say Carmarthenshire is more kind of like, Carmarthenshire is quite a big place. You've got Cardiff, Swansea, and then you've got like areas like Carmarthenshire, Swansea, and does Cardiff come under Swansea, or does it come under Carmarthenshire?
Parliamentary constituencies depends on the population. So in Cardiff, you've got Cardiff West and the Cardiff East.
Yeah,
and I think you've got 3. I think you've got Cardiff Central, if I'm not mistaken. In Swansea, you've got East and West, and in Llanelli, you've just got Llanelli.
Llanelli is actually bigger than people think. They say when we were talking about the village of where we were, sort of like Furness, right? And not the whole of Llanelli, because Llanelli is quite a big place. I mean, when I've been to Llanelli, it's got everything. When you go to the out of town shops, which is probably a reason why when you go into the town centre, it's actually been decimated. The shops are boarded up, every single shop. It's absolutely like a shithole, the town centre, the high street. It looks horrible. Everything's boarded up. All the shops have gone. People are sleeping in doorways. It looks an absolute complete mess. It looks horrible.
Yeah, it certainly does. Who gave permission to build out of town developments? Who? Yeah. Who's not supporting the businesses in Llanelli? Why is it free parking at Trostre, but but you have to pay parking in the town centre? It makes no sense.
Yes,
and you know, if elected, I'm hoping that I'll make Llanelli great again.
I actually said that to somebody, and it's strange that you can go to these out of town shopping and you can park for nothing. And yet you go into the middle of Llanelli if you've got to go into there for anything. And I think we went in for a meal. A few of us went into a meal at a Hungry Horse, which was complete and utter shite. It was horrible. Worst meal I've had in ages. It was like, I don't know, worse than microwave meals. You know, it was horrible. And yet you have to pay for your parking. And it was just mental. I think there's a cinema, is it an Odeon complex? And you've got a few other, I think you've got the Asda next door. You're probably better off going into Asda car park and parking there and go about, because you've got about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas you go to all the others, you have to pay it. It just none of it makes any sense. That you think to yourself, I'm in a foreign, well, not a foreign country, but I'm in a different country, or I'm part of the British Isles, but I might as well be on the moon.
But I mean, you've seen that. You've seen people that are homeless in the streets.
Yeah.
You've got was it 45 shops we counted that are empty? You've got Quango businesses that are something to do with the town council or the community council or the county council, and you've got more government buildings in the centre than there are buildings. It's ridiculous. Then you've got
video you did with an ex. I don't know if he was an ex-player or somebody from Llanelli, a guy you did a video with, and you was actually walking around Llanelli, and he was actually shocked. And he couldn't believe how much his hometown had changed. He just couldn't believe it.
Yeah. Well, that was Rob. Rod, and you know, so we've got all these things. But what do the councillors want to do? What does the business industry want to do? They want to make Llanelli a city.
Yeah, I see that.
What crazy nonsense. Make it a thriving market town first. Get the buildings open
there before you make it a city.
And then think about getting it a city. But you've got graffiti, you've got vandalism, you've got decay, you've got rot, and they think, well, let's make it a city. It's like putting lipstick on a pig.
Lovely way of putting it. Yeah, James Isaacs, 15-minute city. Bury Town Centre is the same, empty shops, etc.
They are throughout Wales. So you've got the loss of probably circa 14,000 jobs in Port Talbot. They're telling Trostre that they're only going to lose 11. you're going to lose 11 now. But when the grants run out, it's going to close, because you've still got to pay the energy tariffs, you've still got to pay the higher costs. And why would anybody buy dearer steel here when you can buy it cheaper abroad? Unless the government have a golden key, or reduce substantially the energy costs for these industries. And you've got to, this is a balancing act, Alan, because how many people are going to commit suicide when the first mortgage payments are due, and then the second one, and then the third one, and then they go to court, and then they get the house repossessed?
Yeah.
The social fabric of Wales is being destroyed by the very lawmakers in the Senedd, and it needs to stop, and we need to change it. And we need to, there are some industries that are sacrosanct. Port Talbot Steel, we've got the best coal in the world in the Margam Hills near Port Talbot. The best coal in the world, anthracite coal. It burns leaner and cheaper, and is far better to keep those blast furnaces going than any coal anywhere in the world. You tell me, what's a greater carbon footprint? To get to mine your own coal in Wales and ship it by a belt into Port Talbot, or ship it all the way from India in a dirty diesel tanker to come over to get it transported onto diesel trains. You know,
brilliantly said. What we've hit on so many things. We touched on so many things. With the way this country is broken Britain, is completely and utterly broken Britain. The energy companies or the utility companies are making actually billions and billions. The oil companies, the fuel companies, the electricity, the water companies, and they're actually making billions and billions and billions of pounds in profit. And it's become such a shame when you think of them. I saw something ridiculous the other day where somebody was offering himself, I don't know, he was getting a ridiculous amount of money. It was millions. Right, and he was awarding himself a pay rise, and I think the pay rise was hypothetically say £1 million. How on earth do you justify paying yourself £1 million when you've got pensioners that are struggling to heat their homes? You've got people sleeping in the street. You've got a Senedd where I've been, or PCP girls, and that's another wing we didn't even touched on. The education and the curriculum and the amount of child abuse that's been taught as part of the national curriculum. There is so much is broken, Stan. There is, our legal, we're allowing this country to be flooded. We're allowing all our jobs to go and paying these people, like you said, a wage that is a lot cheaper than us buying it, from another country and then producing it here. When we've got all these resources on our own country, what can we do to stop all this nonsense?
So Finland and Sweden, I think it was Norway. I'll start with Norway because I'm sure of that. Norway, when they struck oil in the 50s in the North Sea, they had a sovereign wealth fund. That country is not in debt. It's got no debts at all. What do? We spend the money as we get it. Our water industry is sold off to French pension companies. Our electricity is Spain and France. Gas is the same. All the profit is going over there rather than into our own country and our own wealth. You walk around London now, every one of those government buildings used to be owned by you and I. They've all been sold. We've sold off the family silver. We've sold off the family tin now. We're going on to the iron.
Yeah, bang on. There's so many brilliant points you made there. Now, we've got about a couple of minutes to go to, we're at the hour. I'm just wondering if there's anything that anybody wants to ask. Does Llanelli have a cathedral, Delsan?
No, I know where he's coming from. There's two ways of getting a city status. One is if the king or the Archbishop of Canterbury comes and does a sermon, or the king, or if it's bestowed on the town itself, which I believe the Senedd can now do.
The Senate has got so much to answer for, but then again, everywhere in this country, doesn't matter where you go, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, or even England, right, and Westminster, and we need change in this country. We need change so dramatically. We have to change the graphic of politics. Go on, sorry, Stan. What you going to say? Was you going to come in there?
Yeah, my pledge, if I get into Parliament, is that we will introduce an initiative where citizens, where you and I can actually call for a referendum on certain things, so that it's out of politics. If you get enough petitioners and you want to, say, for example, do what Kazakhstan has now done and not chemically castrate paedophiles, but actually properly castrate paedophiles. Yeah. If you wanted to launch that and you got enough petitioners, then it would go to a referendum. We've got to go to a more advanced society where we don't just give up for 5 years and we tell the parliamentarians tell us what to do for 5 years, and on one day of the year we have control. It's got to be the other way around, Alan.
I saw only a couple of days ago, Cleverly, the Home Secretary, he turned around and asked government for an extra 2.6 billion to house the illegal immigrants.
Yeah,
what James, the answer is, Stan, we need to do something. I mean, we can't police the English Channel, let alone the Red Sea.
No, we can. We haven't got the willpower. We could actually impound the Royal National Lifeboat Institute boats, and we could stop Border Fast from picking them up. We could institute the Royal Navy in there to pick them up, because we don't want anybody to drown, but we pick them up and we treat them as prisoners of war. We fingerprint them, we DNA them, we ensure that we get a positive ID on them. And if we can't get a positive ID on them, they remain on board until we then dump them in the Ascension Islands to be processed. And then we then put them into Africa. They do not touch British soil.
They're talking about Rwanda and places like that, Stan. Ascension Island, I know we got Ascension Island. It's always been part of a British colonial place where we've been using it. It's always been like a military island kind of thing. Our aircraft usually to take off and land someone, or refueling, or whatever the case might be. Is it a big big enough island to house all these?
No, because it is, because it's going to be a swift process. They're not going to linger. They're not going to have an appeal. They're not going to have anything like that. If they can't prove who they are, then with the DNA, you can find out where they come from, to within kilometres, actually.
I find it sickening that they're using the RNLI to pick these illegals up and bring them to inshore and like the...
You want to see what the RNLI spend their money on. You want to go and have a look at what they spend their money on. I think if it wasn't last year, it was the year before, they bought life rafts and bikinis and trunks and swimming aids for an African country. Nothing to do with Britain.
It's mental. Absolutely mental. It's weird because there was something I was working doing some traffic management on. They're building a new RNLI station in Cleethorpes in North Lincolnshire near Grimsby Way, and the amount of money that has been spent on that, I think it's millions that's been spent on just a launching thing for a boat to go out to the Humber estuary, because that is quite treacherous. I mean, it's probably worse than Morecambe for the tide cutting people off and people getting caught out there, and it's a busy shipping area, as you know, for Ingham and the car. There's millions of cars that are just left in fields and fields and fields. It almost seems never empty. And I think to myself, by the time you get that car, it'd probably be a rust bucket.
Yeah.
With it, corrosion from the sea and all that. But yeah, we need change in this country. We need it really, really badly. And then I see Anne-Marie Waters is going, standing for UKIP. You're standing for UKIP. UKIP didn't. It started off all right with Farage, and then it went off key, didn't it? And it lost a lot of support.
It did. The issue was a quick succession of party leaders, and infighting, basically.
Yeah, well, we see that in children's groups or protesters groups that are all over the country. There's so much nonsense that goes on. If they concentrated on the reason why they were there and not the egos, then we'll probably live in a better world. You could probably go for some of these politicians to stand in front of the cameras. It's not about policies, it's not about that. It's almost like themselves opposing for a photo shoot. And it really is quite disturbing when you see some of these politicians in front of the camera. They are virtually actors within Parliament, actors.
Well, we've actually sort of done a full circle here, because Gerald Batten wanted, UKIP leader, wanted Tommy Robinson in the party.
Yeah.
When he couldn't get him in the party, he said, well, he's going to be an advisor. And some of the national executive didn't like that. And that's when it imploded. Now, if you can think, if Gerard had managed to keep Tommy in, how big would that UKIP be now? But I mean, we can't all ifs and maybes, can we?
So, well, tomorrow night we've got the farmers' meeting in Carmarthenshire, in the cattle market in Carmarthenshire, and I hope it's not a case of them just sticking Wellington boots outside the Senate, because at the end of the day, what a waste of time. They might as well just, like you said, just stay at home, because just sticking empty Wellington boots outside there without super gluing them or filling them with cow shit or something like that, it's just a complete and utter waste of time. Well, you've got the cow shit already into the Senate, so you wouldn't need to fill them, would you? Really?
Well, if they wanted to get rid of methane, I'd suggest that they shut the Senate. But there we go.
Anyway, Stan, we've got to close the show. Unfortunately, we've got reached our hour. Thank you ever so much for coming on. I will see you soon, probably in Wales. If I don't see you in Wales, I will probably see you on the 23rd of March anyway. But I should be doing some bits and pieces before that. I've got a few things lined up. I'll let the folk know what I do. You're more than welcome to come on here again. Thank you ever so much for coming on and being my guests tonight. You've opened up a debate, and we've had a good audience tonight.
Who's the Royal Navy man?
It's Charles Ernest Spencer.
Right, Charles. Up spirits.
Up spirits. There you are, Charles. He said to you, up spirits. So thank you to everybody, to Roy, Delroy, James, Sophie, Spear Thrower, every single person that's actually been in. I can't go through you all. I'm going to scroll back through there. We've run out of time. I have to end the stream, guys. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to you in the comments who are part of the show. And I love and respect you, everything. Stan, a great pleasure and an honor to have you on the show. Thank you very, very much. And guys, thank you. Yes. Love you all. And I'll send you a copy of the show anyway, Stan, so you can have a look back.
Okay, super. Cheerio. Bye-bye, folks.